All right, super. I think we're up. We're up and running. So thanks everyone. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So you should. Does everybody see my web page, or does someone, or can anyone see it? Just confirm.
Yes.
You can see it. Okay, super. Thanks. All right. Well, thanks and welcome everyone. We're going to the session is really well. Welcome to the program, and excited to have you guys, everyone, interested in participating in the the open source shuttle program sponsored by Google. We in this particular call, we're going to walk through the steps of what it of utilizing the platform to submit a project for the shuttle. So I'm going to kind of walk through each of those steps. And in the second half of it, we have Mohammed Shalan also joining the call. He's going to be providing some walkthrough around Caravel itself. And so Caravel is a kind of reference SOC design and test harness that you need to use for your project in order for to participate on the shuttle. And we're going to talk a little bit about that kind of in the second half of the session today. We will, if you do have questions, please go ahead and you can go ahead and submit those on chat. We'll go ahead and review those. Kind of any questions posted there, as well as if we have time, we'll cover some live questions as well. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this is what you're looking at right now is our main homepage. You'll see some links kind of distributed through Slack and other and elsewhere that takes you directly to the landing page for the program. That's which looks like this, right? And on this landing page is there's a set of content around there, in terms of information around what the shuttle program is, kind of what are the requirements to participate or submit, regarding your project in order to participate on the shuttle, some information around the overall milestones and timelines, right? There's a set of instructions then that basically walk you through each of the steps of what's required to submit on the shuttle, and that's what we're going to go through here today. And then kind of below this, you'll find two other sections, one around resources, another one around frequently asked questions, and that which will be maintained and updated as we proceed and get, as we get additional questions in. At the bottom here, you'll see a table of the current requests that are active, right? People who submitted and are currently planning to participate on the shuttle. So you'll see those. There'll be a table at the bottom here that kind of shows you all the various participants and kind of where they're at from a status perspective. All right. So with that, let me go ahead and start kind of through the flow or through the steps. So the first step is you do need to have an account on the platform. So if you don't have one already, this button here will take you to that. You can also obviously do that here from the registration or login buttons at the top of the screen. I am already registered, so it's going to give you a little bit different presentation if you're not or don't already have an account. But in general, the way you get an account on our platform is is for authentication. We use LinkedIn. And so you need to have a LinkedIn account that you can use for signing into the platform. If you have a LinkedIn account, then great. If you don't have one, you can create a very simple one and send us an email and notification saying that you've set up a kind of a really basic profile in order to support registration or access to the account, and we'll help you make sure that gets kind of through our process. So basically what you'll do is here you're seeing an example of where I already have an account. I'm using LinkedIn to sign in, and you'll see it basically, well, guess an error. Unfortunately, it's kind of the curse of demos. So I'm just going to go right back to the home page here, but you'll see I'm already logged in. So what we do is when you register, you basically will be presented with a kind of a set of terms and conditions for the site, usage of the site, just standard usage requirements for the site. You need to accept those. Once you do so, a message notification goes back to Efabus So when our team kind of reviews and makes sure, confirms everything looks okay on our end from an account registration perspective, and then you'll have full access. You'll be, you know, flagged in our, or we'll switch, we'll enable a switch in our system to give you that. It enables you full access to all the features on the platform, and that is required for executing the submission process on the platform. Okay, so anyway, that's the first step. I'm going to go back to the main page here. Is to either create an account, or if you already have an account, then go ahead and log in and register. The second step is to create a project. So this is assuming that you have a project. Your project is available as a public Git repo, right? So that's one of the requirements. Is that your project is available and as a Git repo. It's publicly available. The project does need to be fully open source, and there's more information and details in the facts around the specifics for that. You'll note today that we're showing that the license we're looking for an Apache 2 license currently. That is in the process of being changed, so we're planning to open that up or update that to allow for other licenses, approved open source licenses as well. And so I expect to see something here either today or tomorrow that kind of gives more details around the broader list of potential licenses. But if you do have a question or concern around that, just please shoot us a contact, a note. There's several ways that you can do that, and I'm going to show that in a little bit later in the video or the walkthrough. All right. There's other requirements around the program itself. The project itself. The other probably notable one, or two other notable ones, is that you need to use the test harness, which we're going to talk about later. It's called Caravel. And so your project or your design needs to be within the user space of that SOC or that implementation. And then the second one is that the project is expected to include source, right? So there should be so your project should include all the source required to generate the GDS layout. And we can kind of cover some questions that you may have around that, depending on what type of project you're executing. All right, so I won't. So kind of with that, I'm going to go back to the flow. So I said the first step is to create a project. I am going to do that here. Kind of in order to do that, I'm going to get we can go back to this page, and I'm going to steal the Caravel. We use Caravel as my project for this demo. So I'm grabbing the link to it. But basically, you're going to create a name for your project. I'm going to call it Demo Mpw Project. You can provide a version number. This is optional. I'll say it's 0.5. Oops. I'm sorry. I hit return. I hit return here when I was in the middle of completing the form. It started to submit. So let me wait for this to. All right, I'll tell you what, let me start a new one. Try that again. All right, version 0.5. So for the URL, you need to provide a link to a Git or an URL to your Git repo. It does need to be have an extension .git to be compatible with what the system's looking for. There's some notes in the question mark hover over here that you can get more details around the specifics, right? But in terms of the format of the URL, there's also some restrictions currently around the overall project size. So again, if you're running into that, please let us know. And a little bit of information around just kind of how this actually works on our platform. But basically, what we're doing when you create the project is we're going to be basically doing a clone of that repo into a workspace on for your project on the platform. All right, you can provide some information about the project here. This is going to be useful for others who are interested in the project and what it does. It's also going to be valuable later in the program when we are building kind of a showcase of all the various programs that are on the shuttle. that will be used for kind of used for populating that information. You'll see that there's a tag in here called Open-Mpw. This is important. This tag is pre-populated, so you don't need to worry about adding it, but you want to make sure you're not removing it. When you create the project, this tag is going to be used by the system to identify that this project is intended to be used on the shuttle. Right? There's a process technology. Again, this is not selectable. This is going to be predetermined for you. Using, again, this is the case when you're using the link I showed you from that landing page, right? If you were to go on our platform and just create a project from scratch, these things will not be pre-populated for you. And you would need to manually select those if you wanted the project to be used or be supported on the shuttle. All right, and this last field here, upload files, is not required. So this is an alternative to a Git repo for bringing files into your project. And so you do not need to include anything for that step. All right, so kind of with that, I'll hit create. You'll see you'll get a notification here that the project's being created. It's in the process of, it says do not navigate away from the page. You just wait for it to kind of complete. There is a background process to pull the data into your project, and so that what may happen is this will complete, but there'll be some background work going on to continue to pull the rest of the data across. And you can check on notifications. You do get notifications here on our, if you select your user name above with a little arrow next to it, you'll get a drop down. You'll see my notifications kind of underneath in your account area. This brings you to kind of the list of all the various projects. So you'll see here I have a project that is looks like maybe this is an older one, Caravel, yeah, 1117. So you'll see any notifications in terms of background processes like we just started there to create your project will be listed here. Okay, so but when I'm done, what you will see is you'll be on the page within the platform that lists all the various projects. In my case, I have a lot of projects listed here, but if you're new to the platform, you'll just have the one that you just created. Let me go ahead. Sorry, I'm going back to that page specifically. So this is the My Projects tab within the dashboard on our site. Okay, and then your project, if I sort by date, will be listed, should be listed at the top since you just created that project last. Okay, so that's the steps. The first step is to create a project. The second step would then be to kind of run a pre-check. So a pre-check is a tool that we've created that runs through a variety of different checks on your project to confirm it meets all the requirements for the shuttle. And there's details on the specifics of exactly what it checks. I'm gonna this project is posted on our GitHub under the Efabus organization. And within this project, you'll find details in the README or in the README file with specifically around what it's doing, how it's checking, and specifics of how it works. You can also run this tool offline, so you can go and clone this, on a system somewhere and run that against your project. It does run using a Docker container, so you have to have Docker on that platform, but short of that, you don't have any other platform requirements to be able to run this tool. And you can do that and verify and check ahead that your project passes or identifying issues that you may be running into to complete successfully. I'm sorry, I'm pointing to the wrong project here. Just realized. This is the one I meant. The last one on the list, Mpw Pre-Check, which is right here. Sorry, so this is the README file that I was referring to. Okay, So coming back to to our platform though, once your project, you think your project passes, you can also run a pre-check on our platform. This is what we'll be doing as part of the final you know step in the process, for tape out. And the in this tool, you basically just provide a name of some sort. You can really name it anything you like. I'm just going to call it Demo Pre-Check. The name, note the name doesn't, I think it requires, you can use underscores, but I can't recall if you can use hyphens or not, or but you definitely cannot use spaces in this. But this is really just a label for you, for your reference in terms of seeing, in terms of identifying the run that you just submitted. So with that, you then select the project that you want to run the pre-check against. In this case, it's the demo Mpw project. This is getting listed here because of that open Mpw flag that was used when we created the project initially. And then submit. Okay, and then what you're brought to a My Jobs page. Again, this page, if you were to wanted to find this page, it would be, let me go ahead and show you just for reference for folks familiar with the platform. It's under the toolbox, and there's a My Jobs tab here that basically this is showing you kind of a list of all the various background jobs that you've executed on the platform. But that's how this Mpw project works, is it runs as a background task. You can check on the status here. So here you can see, when the job is submitted, when it's started. You can tell, it'll show status if it's running, and then when it's completed, right? And when it completes, it'll tell you whether it was successful or failed. Here's an example of what that looks like, right? So here's one that I've run previously, and it reached a failure condition. You can also get logs from here. So so you'll find kind of the first part of these logs give you more of milestone progress as throughout the background, throughout the pre-check. So it's kind of showing you each of the steps and whether and whether it's successfully passed or not, or what the result was. And then at the very end, there'll be the very last line will say full log, and you can click on full log to get kind of the detailed log, the full detailed log of for the check. Right. There is further detail you can get, and you can get that by actually going onto the platform and looking in a checks directory underneath the project that you just created. I can show you that. I'll come back and show you that later. But again, you can either get that information here, or of course you can run the pre-check tool offline, and you'll find that information locally on in your project. All right, so that's to execute the pre-check. If you do have issues, the process is to update implement any fixes or address any issues in the repo itself, right? And then come back and you can update your project from the repo. So the way you do that is you'll be brought, I just clicked on a button, it should bring me to the table. So unfortunately, when I'm running Zoom, sometimes my performance really suffers. So apologies for that. But if you'll be brought back to to basically a table of all your projects again, and in your cases there'll be just either one or just a couple of them listed here. There's a button on the far right that says update local files from the remote Git repo. You got a couple of kind of this little symbol or icon here for the two arrows. And when you press on that, it'll prompt you asking you if you want to update the project. If you do that, it's going to basically overwrite all the contents of your project on the platform with what's ever currently in your repo. So it's just confirming you want to proceed. And if you say yes, okay, it'll go off in the background, do it basically reclone your project back into the same project you have on the platform here. All right. At that point, you can go back and run a pre-check again, and you can continue to iterate until you work through whatever issues are being flagged. So that's the kind of the first step. A couple of others. Another step you need to do in this process is because we're going to be you're kind of executing a service with you. We need to have like kind of your full name and your physical location. This is private information just to you, unless you and it's kind of noted that in your profile here that information you have here is not public unless things like your phone number and email can be made public, but it's up to you if you choose to or not, and by checking the box, right? But short of that, basically, you need to provide your physical address, like where you reside, and then your full name. All right, and that's just because of because we're going to be providing fabrication service to you, and we need to have more a clear identity and who we're supporting, who we're providing services to. Okay, so that's one step. The next step on this process is to create a request. So now you have a project that passes or meets a certain level, or you're getting close to the point of being ready to go on the shuttle. At any point in that, you can decide, you can basically initiate an initial request. This request basically notifies us that you intend to be on the shuttle. And so when you launch that, you're going to get a page. It's a very simple form. Again, you're going to put your name in. You can provide an organization name or company name if you choose, or you don't, but that's not required. You select the project that you want to submit on the shuttle. In this case, it's my demo Mpw project. You provide shipping location. So again, this is private to just you, but it's basically for this particular project. Where do you want parts shipped to and boards? So the program itself will provide packaged parts and boards, and you're basically providing, just confirming what the shipping location is for that you want that shipped to. Okay, so I'm gonna put something in here for now. If I can spell. And then save.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Okay, and then what you'll be brought to is a page. This page is basically a view of your service request. So I think, I don't know if someone's off mute, but I hear a little bit of background noise.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Sorry, can you unmute? Okay, great, thanks. All right, so you'll be brought to a page that basically shows the details for your your submission. It'll kind of identify the repo and some of the information that you provided. It also provides you a list of the things you need to do to confirm your project is complete and ready to go, right? And so that's what this list is here. What you need to do basically is review each of these items, confirm you've met all these requirements, and then once you've done that, you're going to basically select
G आवाज आ रही है.
you're going to select this change tool here to basically confirm that you've met all the requirements, and that will basically flag us to know that, okay, you think you're final and you're good to go, and then we'll initiate checks on our end to confirm everything looks good. We're going to be rerunning a lot of the checks that you've done, confirming some of your repo and some of the requirements manually. It'll include things like DRC checks, as well as some additional steps we need to do for tape out. And then once everything is finally good to go, I'm going to go ahead and just select this. You'll see, oops, okay, sorry, this is the challenge of the demo. So because I'm a provider, it checked the wrong one, or maybe I accidentally hit the wrong one. But you'll basically, when you hit that button, your checkbox will be checked. You'll see the provider confirmed will be open, and then once we finalized and completed everything for the and confirm everything's good to go, you'll see that status change from to be checked as well, and that way you'll know that everything's accepted and ready for the shuttle. Also in this view, there's another tab here called Activity. And this Activity tab will basically, you'll see milestones here for like when someone has changed the status of their from confirmed, either from confirmed or from confirmed to back to unconfirmed again, in case there's something's changed and they need to go back and fix something. You can also submit messages. So, and this is the best way once you've started or initiated a submission. The best way to communicate with us is through this method here. So you can submit just text messages. You can also attach files. But basically, there'll be a thread of communication thread here between Efabus and you, relative to kind of any issues or any information or questions that come up regarding your submission. And you can, again, this is one way that you can get help or ask questions. So again, you can start the submission as soon as you'd like. That submission process, and that may be one way for you to be able to communicate, and at least we know that you're planning to be on the shuttle. But there's other ways you can communicate with us as well, and I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, so let me just go back to the main page. You'll see now that I've submitted on the shuttle, you'll see my project will show up in this table. You'll see a list of everyone else who is also who's already gotten through that step of submitting a request or creating a request. And you can also come in here and you can open your open the request by selecting on your name. Sorry, it's taking a little bit to come up. Normally you'll get the same form that you initially submitted when you created the request, and you can edit and update any information like your shipping address on that form. No, I'm sorry, it's actually bringing me to this page. So there's on your button on your page of view, instead of copy project, you'll see a different feature here called edit request. When you click on that, you'll actually be brought to your original page that you submitted, where you can make additional changes or updates if you need to. Okay, so let me hit a couple more things. I'm going to go back to the main landing page. There's a couple more items on here. One of them is there's a form that is relative to kind of ITAR certification that just confirms that your project meets kind of doesn't fall or isn't restricted by any export regulations, right? So you don't have anything specifically in your project that would fall under export controls. And so that's just a kind of a sign off that you need to do and provide back to us. The way you would do is you just complete this form, sign it, and then attach it to the request process. So when I showed you previously, sorry, where am I? I showed you on this activity page here. You can submit messages to us. You can also attach files. So what we'd like you to do is just attach that, complete that form, attach it here. That's what we're looking for. The other item is there's also just kind of a terms and conditions. Again, the cost of the program is covered by Google, so it's free of charge. But there are other terms and conditions related to just that you just need to read through and just be aware that and just what we need is just you to basically check that you have read and agreed to the terms for this particular shuttle service. And that's pretty much it. Again, you can track your progress. You can go back through here. This last one is just manage requests, which gets you back to that request page, which I showed you earlier. If for some reason you submit a request and choose that you don't want to participate, or you decide not to participate, you can withdraw your request by going, you can click on this tab here. You'll find your request call here is called Open Mpw, and you can basically just hit this button here and say close, and that will remove your remove your request from the consideration for this particular run. All right. So a couple things I wanted to cover as well is just where to get help and more information. So let me try to go back to the main page here. Yeah, I mean, I think when you see and you're actually using the site, it's not nearly like this. It's the challenge for me is I'm streaming as well as probably recording video. It doesn't help either. In any case, so the additional information here is available on the specs page. You can link to it from the top or the bottom of this page. You'll get basically, there's a list of questions that you can expand and review with specific details. And what I wanted to, a couple things on here is obviously there's going to be a little more detail around Caravel. I mentioned previously that you need to use Caravel for your project. We're going to go over that kind of in the next session of this call. The licensing I already covered as well. So there's information around what are the licensing requirements in here. Sorry, someone's mic's off mute. You could just double check, please. All right. So the license requirements will be updated here shortly. Probably you'll see something either later today or tomorrow that expands the number of the types of licenses that you can have for your project. Any third-party libraries or components need to be organized within your repo in a specific directory structure, and they need to also have a license file identifying what license that they're supporting. So that's just another note. There's also a requirement around headers on your source files, and so this applies to all source files as well as documentation, right? So, but it does not apply to, it's not required for any generated files. All right. The last thing is just getting help. So where do I get help? A couple of options. One is what I showed you already, which is submitting messages through your request process. The second one is you can post to the Slack community. So if you're not already on that, there is a FAQ here, which basically shows you how to join the Slack community. You basically will click on this link, provide your email address, and then you'll receive an invitation to join the Slack channel. And then that's a great place to post questions. In addition to, Efabus staff will be on there and responding. There'll be others as well that have experience and can probably help you as well with some of your questions. And the last one is a help desk ticket. All right, so we do have a help feature here on the far right tab, right lower portion of the screen. You'll see a kind of a help tab on the side, pull out, where you can basically submit a help ticket. And we're monitoring and responding to those as well. So just 3 different options for you. Okay, so let's kind of given that, I'm thinking, well, why don't we go ahead with the next section? Well, I'll take a look at the questions in the chat. And we'll kind of come back to questions at the end for both this section as well as Caravel. All right, so Mohammed Shalan, are you on?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to turn it over to Mohammed Shalan to talk a little bit about Caravel.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So yeah, this is Mohammed Shalan. In this part, we're going to go over the Caravel, the harness SoC that must be used if you want to get your design into the free shuttle. And the other, also we're going to cover Openlane, how can we use it to harden your design and eventually merge it with the Caravel SoC. So first we're going to start with 3 pre-recorded videos made by the Caravel and Openlane team. The first one, Manar will basically give an overview about Caravel and what are the features and what they are basically things that you can use and utilize basically by your project. The second video, Ahmed Ghazi will show you and will walk you through the process of hardening your design and how can you merge the generated GDS2 from the Openlane with the Caravel SoC. And then finally, Amr Gohar will clarify a few things just to set the expectations, and eventually these things basically will address and answer lots of questions we are getting over Slack and or through issues on GitHub. So Jeff, please, can you play the first video?
Okay, great, here we go.
Hi everyone. So in this video, I will provide a brief overview about the Caravel chip and the features provided to the user project space. So Caravel has three main components. The first component is the management area, and it contains a Wishbone Pico RV32 and some peripherals like GPIOs, UART, and timers. And the second component is the storage area, and it contains 2 blocks of 1 kilobyte SRAM. And currently the storage area is only accessible through the management space. The third component is the mega project area, and this is the component that we are mainly interested in as Caravel users. So Caravel provides a number of features to the user project space. The first feature is the I/O ports. So Caravel allocates 38 I/O ports for the user project. And these I/O ports can be serially configured by the management area by running a firmware on the Pico RV32, which configures these 4 registers. The first register is the Xfer register, and this register initiates as a serial transfer. And this is needed because the I/O control blocks are connected as a 1-shift register, which is serially loaded. So the Xfer register here initiates the serial transfer. The second set of registers is the Mega Project I/O, and since we have 38 I/O ports, you will find 38 of these registers. And each register is responsible for programming one of the I/O ports. The third register is the data L, and this contains the data loaded to the first 32 I/Os. And the fourth register is the data H, which contains the data loaded to the remaining 6 I/O ports. The second feature provided by the management area is the Wishbone MI port. And this port can be utilized for exchanging data between the user project and the management area. And similar to the I/O ports, this Wishbone transaction can be initiated by running a firmware on the Pico RV32, which writes or reads from the Mega Project state page. The third feature is the logic analyzer. So Caravel has 128 logic probes, which are connected between the management space and the user project area. And these probes can be used for monitoring or controlling signals inside the user project space. And they are also configured by running a firmware on the Pico RV32. And this firmware can write to one of the 4 data registers or the enabled registers, which determine the direction of the logic probe. And finally, for the user project clocking, the management SoC also supplied the clock for the user project area. And the user project area has 2 clock ports, the Wishbone clock input and the user clock 2. So the Wishbone clock input, it is the same clock that the management core operates on, and it either comes from the clock pad or the clock output from the PLL divisor. And the user clock 2 also either comes from the clock pad or an independent PLL divisor. So we have a sample user project in the Caravel repo, and this project is simply a 32-bit counter. And it showcases how to utilize the three features. So it uses the Wishbone port to read or write from the count register, and it uses the logic analyzer probes to set the value of the count register, and it also uses the LA probes to drive the clock signal. And finally, for the I/O ports, the sample user project also uses them to monitor the count value.
Okay, so that's the first one. Mohammed, is any comments, or should we just go?
Yeah, we just proceed to the next project, and I think we can just keep the questions till we play the 3 videos. So the second video eventually by Ahmed Ghazi, and Ahmed Ghazi will walk us through the process of using Openlane to harden your project, which eventually will go into the mega project area, and also will show you how can you merge the generated GDS2 with the GDS2 of the Caravel SoC.
I'm just having a problem. I just tried to open it up and it's giving me a compatibility issue. Let me try one more time. I'm gonna just try downloading it again.
Hello, this is Ahmed Ghazi.
No, for some reason. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to play it directly off of Google Drive, since that seems to work. All right. So apologies for that. Go in full screen. Can you see? Everyone see that? Can someone confirm? You can see the video.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Thanks. Here we go.
And I'll talk a bit today on how to get your design or project aboard the Caravel chip.
Let me restart since I missed.
Hello, this is Ahmed Ghazi, and I'll talk a bit today on how to get your design or project aboard the Caravel chip for the upcoming Google Skywalker Shuttle. So this video will contain an example on how to replace the sample design that you get when cloning the Caravel repo with your own user project. As a disclaimer, this is probably not the actual Caravel chip, but it does still convey the concept. So let's start with a couple of basic assumptions. First, what you basically need at the very least is your own design in GDS2 format, conforming to the provided abstract dev view. I'm saying at the very least because you probably need a couple of more files like a gate level netlist to pass pre-checks, but that's another topic for now. So in the Caravel repo, you're going to find the left directory, under which you're going to find a file called user project wrapper empty. If you check what this file is, it's basically an empty left file that defines pins of your design, as well as a number of power stripes that expose the accessible power domains to your project. So what you need to stick with is the number of pins and their order, as well as dimensions. Also, your design should be named user project wrapper. This is just to reduce the number of variables, so just stick to that. So how would you obtain such GDS for your design? That is, hardening your design. If you're using Openlane, I suggest looking into the Caravel/Openlane/ makefile. This makefile already creates targets per directory. So if you'd like to include extra blocks, you just need to duplicate a directory with a proper name and create a configuration file below it, and that's it. You just can type in make your block name. What you need to look at is the configuration file under the user project wrapper, as it contains a strict definition of the die area, the strict dimensions that you should follow, as well as the pin order configuration file that defines the exact pin order that you should be following. So all probably that you need to change is the pointers to the Verloc files of your project instead, keeping in mind that you need to stick with the exact pins defined in this file. Afterwards, all you have to do is just run make user project wrapper, which will run Openlane, and then you wait a bit. This will finish. I'm going to cancel it for now because I already have the files, but you're going to get various views of your block distributed already to the various corresponding directories. So, for example, the example project that comes with Caravel looks like that. And the sample Caravel chip, as you clone the repo, has the project placed at the heart of it, as you can see here. So that's how you obtain a GDS for your design. Otherwise, if you're not using Openlane, you need to place another GDS to add this path. So I have already an example here that I created. As you see, I'm calling it now my user project wrapper, and this is just a sample project that has just shapes on metal 5, and in the exercise we're going to replace this one instead of that one. So as you can see, the project name is correct, user project wrapper, and what we need now to do is just rename my user project wrapper into the proper name without the prefix my, and that's it. The next step is to look at the Caravel root make file that will be there, and currently magic is a prerequisite in order to integrate your design onto the Caravel chip, but later we may provide a Docker container that contains magic and potentially K-layout as another option for streaming out your GDS too. And now all you need to do is, in the project, in the Caravel root directory, just run make, which will start reading in all of the various sources and GDSs of all the blocks on the Caravel chip and integrate your own user design into it. So you just wait a bit. So as you can see, after 15 minutes you should get a Caravel_out under the GDS directory. So let's check that out. As you can see, it has your user project substituted in place of the default example user project. So that's how you get your design aboard the Caravel chip. So thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Okay, great. So let me go ahead and start the last video. Actually, I might want to just, since that worked, I want to go ahead and do that from here.
Hello everyone.
Let me get full screen. All right, here we go.
Hello everyone. I'm Amr, and in this video, we will cover things to clarify about the Caravel project. We will be answering the common questions that we've heard, and we'll give some tips on how to move forward with Caravel. So to begin with, how to reproduce Caravel? The answer is, you shouldn't. Do you need to regenerate any of the blocks? You shouldn't. Can you change the size of any of the blocks? You mustn't. In fact, if you change the size of anything, your design won't be accepted. Your efforts should be concentrated into the user project and nothing else. You shouldn't apply any changes in the configurations, the layout, or the RTL of any of the other blocks. Now, let's clarify some things about Caravel and Openlane. The development team of Caravel are using Openlane RC5, which is still in the develop branch of Openlane, and so it has not yet been released to master. And here, we need to make it clear that things on the develop branch tend to be under development, and so you should assume that they will be unstable and quickly changing at any given moment. So what version should you be using to insert your design? You should be fine with using RC4, which is the current master of Openlane, or RC5 once it's out. However, if you're using RC4, make sure to update the commit hashes of the Skywater PDK and OpenPDKs to the head of each repo. Now, what should you be doing with Caravel? Start with creating your user project and perfecting it. Insert your project to replace the user project example. Follow the instructions that Ahmed Ghazi gave in the other video. Reiterate until you have what you want in terms of timing and antenna violations, and make the necessary changes to power and clock. Then insert it into the Caravel chip, which should be assemble, make, target, part of the Caravel repo in the future. Finally, make sure to run the pre-checks locally before submitting your design. Then let's talk about simulations. To run simulations, you don't need Openlane. Also, the PDK commits in Openlane from RC1 to RC4 don't have the IOs or the HVL library, and so they cannot be used for simulation. What you need is the head of Skywater PDK and OpenPDKs, and you need the HD, HVL standard cell libraries, as well as the IO library. You can also use the makefile of Openlane develop branch to install the latest version of the PDK, but just the makefile. Finally, let's talk about some tips on using Openlane. We try to keep an example for each use case under the designs directory on the repos, so make sure to check it. For instance, there is an example of macro placement in the design manual macro placement test. You can see how to use standard cells as black boxes in the digital PLL, as well as the DFF RAM in the Caravel repo. You can learn how to do custom pin placement from the configurations under SPM. However, the configuration that points to this configuration file in the SPM config.txt is commented out, so you need to check that. There is an example tiny design under inverter, which consists of a single cell, and there is a synthesizable RAM in synth RAM. There is an exploration script that is able to sweep different configurations at the same time. You can find a detailed documentation for this under regression results readme.md. You can find the documentation for all configurations under configurations readme.md. All Openlane commands are documented in doc openlanecommands.md. And also make sure to check the FAQs in the Openlane wiki. You will find a lot of useful tricks there. And wait for more documentation with the next release that will walk you through the steps of hardening the macros and the decisions you should make. This is currently being reviewed in the develop branch. Here is a list of useful links to the repos you will probably be using, and here I would like to reiterate that the Caravel repo is still a work in progress, as well the develop branch of Openlane, which contains the RC file. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, excellent. So, okay, with that, let's, Mohammed, do you have any other comments or additions you wanted to touch on before we go into
no, I think that's it. And we are open basically to receive any question from the audience. So feel free to ask your questions either through the chat. I'm not sure what's the format, Jeff.
So let's go through. We have a few in the chat, so let's go through those, and then we'll open it up to anyone who wants to submit questions live or ask questions live. So so first question is, will the free shuttle program continue next year? So the answer is yes. There is currently the plan is there's 6 shuttles planned that continue into next, beyond this one. So there'll be another 5, I would say at least. And then those were the next one past the current shuttle is currently planned for sometime spring to late spring next year. So there'll be more information about that as that kind of gets solidified in terms of the actual dates. Second question is, are the clock frequency for both Wishbone and the user clock the same? So Mohammed, could you chime in?
Yes, well, they could be the same. Well, they come from 2 different sources. So you have 2 divisors as shown by the video. So eventually, through the firmware running on the management SoC, you can configure these 2 divisors to generate different frequencies. So they could be the same, could be different. You can use just single source for the mega project and basically use that as your main clock. So yeah, so you have 2 sources. you have control over them, and you can use them the way you want.
Okay, great. Next question is the Zoom call recorded? Yes, it is. In fact, and I'll be posting that I'll post it to the Slack channel, as well as the PDK, the Skywater various distribution lists, as well as on the fact page as well. So we'll have links to that, as well as the videos that we showed earlier individually. All right. Next question is, what about OpenRAM? What about OpenRAM is going to be released in time for tape out? So I guess a question around what's available for OpenRAM relative to tape out.
Yes. So what we have right now is a 1 kilobyte dual port memory generated by OpenRAM. This is being used and utilized by the Caravel SoC in the storage area, as mentioned by Manar. So we have 2 blocks in the storage area, and they are basically for the first version of Caravel. This is basically meant to test these blocks. They will be accessible only by the management SoC. Regarding the ability of generating other blocks, as far as I know, the OpenRAM compiler can generate. But regarding basically how usable are they, I don't have answer for that.
Yeah, for this shuttle, this is Mohammed Qasim. For this shuttle, do not assume that you can generate a RAM through the compiler. The only available units are what Mohammed mentioned. It's either 1 kilobytes of SRAM to dual port, plus the ability to use the DFF-based memories. There may be a single port coming later as a macro, but do not assume that you can use OpenRAM and wait for it. If you would like to take a risk and actually do it, which is, by the way, encouraged, no problem, but do not assume that the compiler will guarantee it at this point.
Okay. Good. So the next question is, who do we approach with issues regarding the usage of Openlane and running through the project flow?
Yes. So basically, there are like 2 main ways basically to do that. The first one basically on the Skywater Slack workspace. Eventually, there's a channel called Openlane, and there's a channel called Shuttle. And eventually you can join these 2 channels, and you can post your questions, and the Openlane and Caravel team will do their best eventually to address your questions. And the other one that you can file issues basically either for Openlane or for Caravel, and also you'll be addressed. I think the fastest way to do that is basically through Slack. But you can also file issue if you are not on Slack. Hopefully, we're going to basically maybe organize another session like this one, maybe 2 more sessions to address your questions. So basically, live interaction for questions and answers.
Okay, great. Next question is, how reproducible does the build need to be? For instance, I may need to patch Openlane. I may need patch. I'm assuming it means I may need to patch Openlane or manually, some manual intermediate fix-ups on the def or the GDS to actually get a design that meets the DRC. So the comment, I mean, the primary requirement, and I'll start with anyways, the primary requirement is that you have the source and the ability to generate GDS. It doesn't have to be fully automated. So, I think there's manual fixes or that is acceptable for the program. I'll let you comment. I mean, Mohammed, if you guys have comments on the Openlane piece of that.
Well, in this case, anything that is done in a custom way, the value of these projects is to be able to share it with other people that can reproduce your work and benefit from it and learn from it and build upon it. If they fail to do that, then your work is facing a dead end. The more people learn and depend and fork and clone your work, because it works, that they can actually start quickly and use it, the more likely your work becomes better and you get more activity. So the key part is that think about someone coming to the repo and should be able to reproduce 100% what you provided. And if there are single steps, you try them, you create clear instructions and make sure that you can actually have someone else try it. Because again, this is not just about the chip, it's about the entire process.
Okay. And then next question is kind of related to that is I recently updated my Openlane branch to the latest development, which also updated Open Road, which is the same config, which for the same config resulted in 10K plus DRC violations, no config changes made between the Openlane Open Road version used to do the automatic pre-check. So basically the question is, I guess, is the pre-check going to be used to do the automatic pre-check going to be fixed, and if so, when can we expect it? So there's going to be continued ongoing updates to pre-check to kind of make sure we're covering and addressing the issues that surface as we go forward. Part of that will be picking up updates from Openlane and the flow and magic, and any changes that occur there, as well as obviously any final changes being done to Caraval. Well, any other comment on that, guys?
Yes. So basically, as mentioned by Amr in his video, you have to use the master branch. The development, as he mentioned, is still under development. So eventually, it's not ready for for anyone to use. Once we sort out basically the issues because of the differences in open roads use tools, the versions in open road tools, eventually I'll update the configurations basically to get zero DRCs. DRC errors, I mean, eventually basically you will be able to do that. So for now you can just stack with the master branch. And once the development branch is ready for prime use, eventually we are gonna basically merge it into master, so it becomes the master and they can use it.
Okay. Next question is, can I edit the routing of the GDS2 file after running make target?
I think this has to do with the question before the previous one,
which is
yes.
Manual fixes, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is allowed, and again, per the comments that Mohammed.
As long as it's clean, the GDS is clean.
Yep. Should we expect Caraval Openlane to freeze at some point until the 30th of November? So, I mean, I can comment a little bit. So Caraval, the user defined aspects of Caraval, which was relative to what you would integrate with, should be stabilizing and be close to freezing going forward. You guys can comment a little bit further in terms of what's left or if anything that's potentially coming down.
Well, the front end of Caravel is out there, so you need to actually make sure that your whatever design you're doing, it is compatible with the front end. If you're using the on-chip resources, or checking out your design itself behaviorally first, and then also focus on the box. And by the way, there's another question related to that keep coming, that Openlane works smoothly on a block level, and then just a little bit challenging on assembling multiple big macros. So I'd like for us, the team, to address this at some point quickly. I mean, within the live session as soon as possible.
Okay, and then just I guess a further comment is that the part of the final tape out, we will be replacing or utilizing a common final version of the GDS for the Caraval portion of the layout, so the non-user space, right? So that will be whatever is the kind of current final version that will be utilized for the shuttle, and that will be common for everybody. All right, next question. I had several questions. Basically, should we fork Caravel repo from Efabus to our own GitHub account and do all the changes inside the fork repo? That's the first question. Second question, are we allowed to use GitHub submodules inside the fork Caravel repo?
The answer is all yes, as long as I can get in without too much thinking, reproduce what you've done in the fork, and then again, I want to be very open to receiving pull requests and suggested modifications to improve the environment moving forward. So again, you can utilize the right structure as long as you can allow somebody else through ideally a make file reproduce everything you've been doing, and short of having some instructions for small or minimum manual editing. And again, keep that in mind. It's very important to you take the fork, improve it, do customization, all of that. We're interested because this is how the flow will improve, and this is how our community together, we're all together improving that project moving forward.
Okay, and two more parts to that question is our Verilog RTL is generated from Chisel, basically. I assume that's not a problem. I think the answer is that's not a problem, but the expectation is that the Chisel source is available in the repo, right?
Yeah, there's one issue here. Eventually, like the generated Verilog, if it has basically, if it's for system Verilog, if it has basically like some system Verilog constructs that are not supported by the tools integrated into Openlane, eventually you'll have a problem. So if the Chisel generator basically has options to limit maybe the generated constructs maybe to Verilog 2005 standard, basically this will be better.
Okay, and then and you can definitely follow up on Slack or other means as needed on that question too. There's another find on the last part of that question is third party. Does a third party content need to be in a separate directory even if it's under the same license, Apache 2 license? So, in particular, they're planning to use the Wishbone to AIX4 bridge. So I can follow up separately on that, unless someone knows. I think that's probably something I'll follow up with and just confirm with you directly on. Okay. Next question is the Git project pointed to by the project created on Efabus contain the whole Caravel framework and the submitted design, or just the submitted design? So it should contain the whole project, including Caravel. Okay. Next question is, could we avoid adding GPIO circuitry for RF? Yeah, could we avoid adding GPIO circuitry for RF?
So you could, and there are a couple of things. The I/O buffers are programmable. So could you mute your phone, please, if you're not speaking?
I can find it.
Is someone speaking?
There we go. Go ahead, Mohammed.
So you could, and of course the I/O is flexibly programmable in multiple directions, and it has an analog mode. There's an argument now about whether that matches your matching requirements and loading and impedance requirements for the RF. The ESD structures so are also going to be a question. So I think this is going to be case by case basis, but I think I'd like to help you do that if you need to.
Okay, so let me. Sorry, I lost my chat. Let me find it where it is. Oh, there we go. All right, so GPIO. Okay, can we integrate the 1 kilobyte RAM in the user area? Can you hear me?
Yes, you can do that. However, it's not silicon validated yet. So yes, the answer is yes, but we need to mention that's not silicon validated.
Okay. Next question. Limit for the repository is 300 meg, but my tool chain is, that generated the files is huge. Okay, so do you really want me to build the whole tool chain and generate files to reproduce the generation of the files? Do you want me to build the whole tool chain? Should I include the tool chain through submodules? Okay, so I don't believe you need to include the tool chain specifically in the repo. Was one piece of that. The second one is there is we didn't really talk about it, but one of the requirements for the project is that you have a makefile at the top level that has both a compress and I believe it's decompress or uncompressed target. The intention is that those targets will compress all the large text files, like including your GDS, to enable you to reduce the size of your overall repo. So for cloning purposes, and then when we go to actually process it, we'll decompress it through that target. Anyway, any further comment on the tool chain from you guys?
No, I think basically responses is good enough. Yeah.
All right, good. All right, so then for all analog design, is the workflow the same? The design should fit in the MPRJ area, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I've been trying to use the extracted left file from the magic layout of DFF RAM 256 by 32 as a black box in my design. I'm getting an error. Undefined layers, NWell, PWell. What action should be required to overcome these? So I suggest this one's probably you want to post to the Slack channel, right? To get specific assistance on this.
Yes, I agree. And Ahmad, did you have like a quick answer to this issue that you can share?
Most likely, you're using an old PDK that doesn't define these layers in the tech lab.
Okay, but please do follow up on Slack, and we'll help you through that. So I'm getting this error in 4-pound station. Okay, so I do see a final question, but it doesn't actually describe the error. So I'm going to please repost that if you. This is regarding the comment is I'm getting this error in floor plan stage. Oh, I'm sorry, that's just a follow on the previous submission. So. Okay, so last one is where do I get the models for the 1K RAM macro file to include in the user area?
Okay, so the 1 kilobyte in the user area actually is in size memory, and as mentioned by Amr, basically there's one of the designs eventually. This is one of the designs already in Openlane as one of the. But if you are referring to the Open RAM, so you can get this basically when you generate this memory using the Open RAM compiler. Also, we have the model and under the Velox subfolder on the Caravel repo. So basically, there is a file there under the Velox subfolder that eventually is the behavior model for the 1 kilobyte dual port RAM generated by the Open RAM compiler. So you can refer to that file.
Okay, so I think that's the list of questions I have. I'm going to hit on one other topic. One other item that I just remembered that I want to make sure everyone's aware of.
So there's one last question, Jeff. Are the 1 kilobyte SRAM blocks in the SoC silicon validated? As I mentioned, the 2 blocks of 1 kilobyte in the storage area, not silicon validated. The one in the management area, it's in size memory. So we did that in the past with several SoCs. So well, it's not a layout. It's something that will be synthesized and place and route automatically using the place and route tools. So yes, it was validated in the sense that the same RTL was used basically in previous designs.
Okay, and then so the one thing I wanted to highlight, just because I didn't really address it, or I want to at least clarify it, right, for anyone who has a question, is what has to be done by November 30th, right? So the November 30th is the deadline for the submission, kind of end of the day Pacific time. We said 11:59. But just for clarity, right? But the intent, really, the requirement is that you have completed your request, you've submitted requests, you've completed and reviewed, you've reviewed each of these items listed here, right? One of those, most significantly, is that your project successfully passes the pre-check tool on the platform, through a pre-check tool submission request, as I showed you earlier. But then you also need to make sure you can provide the rest of these steps. And lastly, you need to select this flag. You need to say change, and your little box here needs to be checked. Okay, so if you meet all those and you've checked the box, then you've met the deadline requirement. If you have any further questions, please reach out and ask. Okay, so with that, let's open it up to any maybe a few online questions. We got about, maybe we'll go for another 10 minutes or so before we wrap it up for this call. So if there's anybody who has questions, please feel free to unmute and ask them.
So I would have a question. I already posted in the chat box, but basically my question is related to your Efabus system when cloning our own repository, also clones the submodules. So it does effectively Git submodule update init recursive.
That's a good question. I need to check and confirm that.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Yeah, so if you could post a question for me, I will follow up. If you could post something on Slack or some way, I can follow up with you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Well, very good. Then I think with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up for this session. We'll be, please be on the lookout for further communication. We'll probably have some additional sessions coming up as well before November 30th to answer further questions around Caraval or any other updates on the project submission process. Thanks everyone for attending. And again, I will also post this link. I'll make the link to this video available for folks who weren't able to attend the meeting. Thanks everyone. Appreciate it. Talk to you later. Bye.